¿Qué pasa, burritos? At kumusta sa mga kababayan? I've been learning Spanish for around 11 years now, and if you're thinking about learning Spanish, I'm here to help. I have 5 tips that helped me learn Spanish and will hopefully help you as well to sound more like a native speaker and speak with fluency. Let's learn Spanish. Vamos! Learning a new language takes time, but is very rewarding. So the tips that I'm going to share with you are things that I've learned over the course of these 11 years, and my hope is that it'll help you in learning Spanish to speak with confidence and build fluency quickly. My first tip is don't depend on word-for-word translations. Spanish is a romance language, and not like ay mamacita. No, it is a romantic language, but a romance language means that it's Latin-based, whereas English is Germanic. It's related to German, and Philippine languages are Austronesian, related to Asia Pacific. So all of these languages have different roots, which means that the meanings don't always translate well to other languages. Let's look at an example in Spanish. If you want to say, brr, I'm cold, in Spanish, you say, tengo frío. Literally in English, this translates as I have cold. Doesn't make much sense in English, but it makes perfect sense in Spanish. If you literally say, I am cold, soy frío, it changes the meaning completely. Soy frío means like I'm a cold-hearted person, and that's not the same thing. Another example is if you want to say, oof, I'm hot. In Spanish, you say, tengo calor. Literally in English, it means I have heat. This is the correct way to say it in Spanish, not a very correct way to say it in English. But again, if you translate it literally, it doesn't make sense. If you were to literally translate I am hot, saying estoy caliente, that means something entirely different. And that's not for this video. So it's helpful in the beginning, at least, to compare what you're learning against your native language. But if you're always thinking in your native language and translating into Spanish, you'll get mixed up. And the thing is, this will limit your fluency. So my advice is don't think word for word. Focus on the meaning. Focus on the context. And if you do translate full sentences. That way you don't lose the context, you don't lose the meaning, and you're less likely to make translation mistakes like saying estoy caliente instead of tengo calor. My second tip is work on your accent and phonetics. If you can speak with a clear, neutral accent, people will understand you better. And if you have a good understanding of phonetics, then you'll also be able to understand native speakers when they speak at full speed, and that will improve your fluency. And apart from the practical reasons, Spanish is a romantic sounding language because of that Spanish flow. Let's look at another example. El vino no vino vino, sino que vino vinagre. So how do we get that Spanish accent? Well, this piece of advice I actually got from my high school Spanish teacher. So he told me, well, as English speakers, we're very uptight and very rigid with our words, but we want our words to flow like tequila. So imagine you take a couple shots of tequila, and imagine, he said, because I was in high school at the time, but he told me, imagine you take a couple shots of tequila, you know, your muscles start to loosen, you start to slur your words a little bit, let the words flow like tequila. And so we say, el vino no vino vino, sino que vino vinagre. Ah, now that sounds like a romance language. And tip number 3, gender and plural. This is particular to Spanish grammar. So in Spanish, there are 4 different ways to say the word the, depending on if you're talking singular, plural, masculine, feminine. In English, there's just one word, the. No gendered form, no plural form. In Filipino, there isn't even a word for he or she, just siya. Lahig gyud ang grammar sa kinachila. Oy! What makes it more difficult is the whole sentence ends up changing based on the plural gender form. So let's look at an example. The in masculine plural form is los. So if you want to say the boys are tall, los chicos son altos. But if you want to say the girl is tall, it's la chica es alta. See how the entire sentence changes? So if you get used to mixing up plurals and gender and saying something like el manzanas, it can become pretty hard to unlearn that habit. El is singular, masculine, but manzanas is feminine, plural. So the correct way to say this in Spanish should be las manzanas, the apples. Think of it like puzzle pieces fitting together. They should match. Las manzanas, as. Those pieces match. And let's look at another example. Los chicos altos. Os. Good. La chica alta. A. Also good. So with practice, it'll become automatic. You'll get used to hearing, this doesn't sound right, or yeah, that does sound right. Those patterns. A. Os. So this is a pretty small detail, actually. It sounds really good when you get it right, though, and it makes you sound a lot more like a native speaker, which is, the goal. And the good news is, even if you do mix up, generally speaking, your sentence still ends up very understandable. But when you get it right, you sound much more fluent. My fourth tip is about verbs. So in English, let's take the word invite. Invites, invited. Pretty easy. In Filipino, invita, mag-imbita, nag-imbita, simple. But in Spanish, there are a lot of different verb forms. Invita, invito, invité, invitaste, invitaron, invitábamos. There's a lot. But there are consistent grammar rules, and there are a lot of resources online, reference websites. Let's take a look at what a grammar table looks like. It looks like a lot of information, but there are predictable patterns, and you can apply the rules in this table to pretty much any other verb. And there are a few irregulars, but definitely not as many irregulars as in English. English is hard. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. And let's be real, if you can figure out Tagalog grammar, ba, nakakapag-babagabag, Spanish is not that hard. And my last tip, number 5. Just don't stress. Yeah, it might feel scary making mistakes, but mistakes really are the best way to learn. And learning a language should generally be a fun process. If you're not having fun, you're probably doing something wrong. Or at least you could be doing something better. You can learn from music, movies, TV shows. There's tons of good Spanish music available on Spotify, TV shows and movies on Netflix, vlogs on YouTube. And chatting with Spanish speakers online is probably the fastest, easiest, and most fun way. You can make friends and learn really quickly. I use an app called HelloTalk to chat with native speakers. And those are my 5 Spanish language learning tips. If you're looking for more Spanish language learning tips, check out my channel for more contenido bilingüe and come learn Spanish with me. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates. And you can also find me on Instagram at Jeremy Burrito. That's all for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.